Hi, everybody. Welcome to Divine Guidance with Nancy Ann. I'm Nancy Ann. So, today, first, I want to know how everybody's doing out there. I hope everybody's getting through all that energy that's coming to us. Just breathe and take it slow and rest if you have to, and drink lots of water. But today, I'm doing this video to talk about the clairs, all the 8 clairs that we go through, and that a lot of us have acknowledged that we have that already. Um, the first one I'm going to talk about is the clairsentience. It's when you have an intuitive ability to perceive energy, emotions, and information through a physical sensation. Um, it's like deep empathy, like a gut feeling, like uh, like when you walk into a room and you can feel the energy, right? So you can feel where the negative energy is coming from, but you can also feel where the positive energy is coming from. So where do we go? We go more towards the positive energy. And that's the right thing to do. But it lets you, when you have that awakening to that gift, it helps you navigate, to stay away from the negative energy. So that's one. Uh, the next one is, say, clairvoyance. So clairvoyance is considered clear seeing. So it's like seeing future events, having premonitions, vivid dreams, seeing something that like happens before it actually happens in reality. So, and I'm sure a lot of you have that happen. I have that happen quite often. So that's another one. Another clair is clairaudience. Clairaudience is the physical ability to perceive sounds, voices, messages from the spirit realm, like, and it's clear hearing. It's considered clear hearing. So you can hear when the spirits are talking to you. You hear the sounds. Like one time, I was hearing the messages, and then all of a sudden I heard the trumpets, and they sounded like they were from heaven. But I heard the trumpets, so it's like you can hear the different sounds, and that happens, which is pretty cool. Um, so that's clairaudience, is the clear hearing. Clear cognizance. That's clear knowing. So clear knowing is, it's like the ability where an individual gains knowledge, insights, or truths instantly. It just intuitively the information just appears. For example, if you meet somebody, right? Say you just you're introduced to somebody, let's say it that way. You're introduced to somebody, and on the outside they seem very charming, very kind, caring, loving, but all of a sudden you get, while they're speaking, this gut feeling that they are not trustworthy, they are untrustable. So we if we don't go by that gut feeling, we always find out the truth anyway, right? So that's the claircognizance. That's one way that I can describe it. Then we have clairalliances. So that's clear smelling. So it's like a physical ability to perceive scents or odors or aromas that have like no physical source. There's nobody around you. Um, It serves most often as an intuitive message, or spiritual sign, like a memory of a loved one. Like when my husband would come around, not that he doesn't still come around, but when he would come around, I would smell his specific cologne that he knew was my favorite. And I would know he was here with me. But I would sense him, feel him. But that's just a sign. Or like my Nana. I always know when my nanny is around because I can smell her scent. So that's just an example of clairvoyances. That's clear smelling. I'd love to know how many of these any of you have. So please write in the comments and let me know which ones you have, or if you might have all of them. Let me know. I'd love to hear it. Love to read about it. Another one is I never say this one right, but it's clear tasting. It's clear gustance. I think I said it correctly. But that's when you can actually taste a substance in your mouth when you have nothing in it. Um, like, say you're watching a TV show and just say it's a cooking show or it's a movie and somebody's cooking. And then all of a sudden you can taste in your mouth exactly what they're cooking. Well, that's what that is, clear tasting. A lot of people have that ability. Sometimes I guess I do have it because sometimes that will happen to me. I'll be watching TV and a commercial come on about coffee, and all of a sudden I taste coffee. So it's kind of, neat to experience. Then we have clear tangency. So that's clear touching. That's a really cool one. So it's also known as psychometry. I said it right, psychometry. Um, it's the ability to receive intuitive information from just touching the person. So, like, placing your hand on them or on their hand, um, or taking an object, like, say somebody wanted you to connect with their deceased loved one, and they hand you an object of that deceased loved one's, something that they held or held cherished. You put that in your hand, and then you can see the person, and they can give you messages that way too. It's pretty cool. I've been able to do that in my lifetime, um, where I touch somebody and all of a sudden I'll see like stuff that happened to them in their past or something that's going to happen to them in the future. It's pretty cool. But sometimes it's a little frightening because you never know what you're going to see. And then you have the question of, oh my goodness, am I supposed to tell this person not to do this because this is could cause their death or something? Like you're in a pickle at that point. But anyway, then the eighth one is clear empathy, and that's the ability to sense and absorb other people's emotions. Um, like if they were your emotions. That's we call them empaths, but the actual name is clear empathy. But yeah, that's the ability where you can feel and absorb somebody else's feelings, and it takes time to learn. Well, I started my gifts very, very young, so it took me years to understand that this wasn't my feeling. This was somebody else's feeling. But yeah, I mean, that's a big one. But those are the eight clairs. And then I always include the visionary and they consider the visionary a seer, SEER. So that's someone who receives divine revelations, insights, symbolic messages, um, sometimes through an altered state of consciousness. And they say that they're the bridge between the human and the spiritual dimensions. They see future events. Now, that has happened to me many, many times. But a lot of my visions, if you haven't already seen the visions that Mary Mother gave me, I do have a video that's on my channel explaining how that would happen, because I would be literally taken out of my body and shown the visions. And then other times it was like I would have the vision like a seer, um, without being taken out of my body, being brought with Mary or Jesus. It's pretty neat. Not always is it, something fun to see but it's a warning for humanity and so forth. But yeah, so those are the eight, and then I always include the visionary so that others know if they don't know. Like I grew up not knowing. I started oh my gosh, I started 58 years ago. It's 58 years ago that I started with my psychic gifts. Can you imagine that? 58 years. I was 4 and 5 years old that they started. And for one example, I'll give you. So my great grandparents, I didn't know, but my mother's grandfather had passed, and they came to visit our family in this little apartment that we lived in right before my parents bought their first home. And I was sitting on the bed, and they I saw both my mother's grandparents. So they were my great grandparents. Now I kid you not, I remember her to this day handing me a piece of gum. I can't remember what kind it was, but it was a piece of gum, and I remember being so excited she gave me a piece of gum. But I saw the man next to her, which was great grandfather, and my mother, when the visit was over and they left, and I said, "How come?" Because I didn't understand why nobody was talking to him. Because I could see him, like I could see my mom and her grandmother and my sister and brother. I can see him so clear. And then later on in my years, I always ask my mother, why did she's like, he wasn't there. He had already passed away. And I was like, no, he didn't. He was there. And to this day, she'll say, no, he wasn't. I don't know what you saw, but he wasn't there. But he was, because I could see him. But these are the things that like would happen to me. And growing up, it wasn't easy because I wasn't around anybody that had these gifts or could explain to me what I was seeing was real. Um, but others can't see it because when you're a little kid, you think that everybody can see and do what you can see, right? You don't know that they're spirits from another realm or heaven, you don't know that. You just see the person. Um, so, there's a lot of things that happen. And I might have mentioned this in one of my videos. The phone was ringing. I was now like 5 years old. My mother was upstairs putting laundry away, and the phone's ringing and ringing. And I'm like, Mommy, the telephone's ringing. It's your friend Betsy. So she comes down. She says, what? You answered the phone? I said, no, I didn't answer the phone. But it's your friend Betsy. She's waiting for you to pick up the phone. So my mother goes running to the phone, picks it up, and it was a woman that she went to high school with that she hadn't spoken to in like 10 years. And I never met her, and she had no clue how I knew this woman's name. Nonetheless, how did I know she was calling when I didn't answer the phone? So I just told her, she asked me, how did you know that was Betsy? You never met Betsy. And I said, it was in my head, Mommy. That's all I can tell you. Came in my head. But that's the stuff that used to happen to me throughout my entire life. I would know things that were going to happen before they happened. There was a time we were still living in that house. I might have been, I don't know, 9, 10. And I remember we were leaving to go either to the laundromat or to Bradley's. And I stopped, and my mother was like, come on, hurry up, come on. And I go, no. And I got this awful pain in my neck. And then I just saw blood, and then I saw my dad's face, and I saw him bleeding profusely from his, and it was the scariest thing because I was a little kid. And I said, no, Mommy, we can't go. Daddy got hurt at work. Daddy got hurt at work. She goes, what? No, he didn't, honey. Daddy's at work. He's fine. And then the telephone rang. So my mother reluctantly put everything down, went and answered the phone, and it was a good thing that I stopped and I saw that because she would have never got that phone call. Because remember, back then in the 60s and 70s, we had no course of a phone coming with us. And it was my father was in an ambulance on his way to the hospital. And he had a piece of shrapnel. He was a welder, and it was laying right there on the carotid artery, so he was bleeding a lot. But obviously they saved his life. But that's just a couple examples of growing up as a kid and nobody understanding you because my mom, she was actually afraid of spirits. She didn't even want to know if I said, she's like, no, 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 there's nobody here. And, that kind of stuff. But it was, I could see it. I mean, I remember the little old lady next door, she had to be in her 90s then. And I remember telling my mom, her husband just got home. And my mom said, what? I said, yeah, the big old fashioned black car. and he parked it in that garage in the back. And my mother said, no, he didn't. And I said, yeah, he did. She said, no, her husband's in heaven. He was really old. And I said, well, he comes home every night at this time. I used to see the man and he'd tip his hat. He had the like a top hat or whatever you call them. And he would tip his hat at me and say hello and go into the house. And I saw him all the time. So I couldn't believe he was a spirit. Like, I was like, no, my mom's wrong. So, all those things. And then I started to see auras when I was little. And we were one time shopping and it was in Bradley's in the town we used to live at. I'm sure you older people know what Bradley's is, especially if you're from New Jersey. And I remember looking over and I saw this lady and she had this beautiful colors around her. Of course, I didn't know it was an aura. I didn't know what it was. I just saw these beautiful, vibrant colors all around her. And I'm going, Mommy, look at that lady. Those colors are so beautiful. Aren't they so beautiful? And she looks over at the lady. Lady's looking, she my mother didn't know what to say. She goes, Nancy, what are you talking about? I go, you don't see the colors? Look at the colors. And she goes, shush, shush. She goes, don't do that stuff when we're in the store. Somebody might take you away from me. Because back then, you got to remember, it was the 60s and early 70s. This stuff wasn't big. And if you said you were a psychic, they think you were a psycho, right? They didn't believe in that stuff. There were far and few between of people that, understood it. And my mother didn't want people to think she had a crazy kid. But yeah, so that's just a little bit of my story. I mean, I'm so happy to share it with you, and I hope you're enjoying it. I mean, high school years, having these gifts wasn't wasn't so great. Did I enjoy high school? Yeah, I made the best of it. I became a cheerleader. I did the stuff that I like. I sang in the chorus. Um, I made the best of it, but when you live a life of just knowing and hearing, I mean, you could be in another room and I could hear the conversation. That was harsh, especially if you thought they were your friends and they're talking about you. It's like, how do you say to them, I know what you just said about me? Because they'll think you're crazy. Although I think if I would have just said, this is what you just said, it would have freaked them out, right? I should have turned the tables and, they would have been like, oh my gosh, how did she hear that? How did she know that? Or they would have been fighting amongst themselves thinking one of the others told me. But yeah, so I kept a lot of it in. I didn't share any of those things with many people, even like only my mother, my father, my sister, my brother. Like they knew I had, what they called the weird thing that happens to me. But it was the way I was born. I was like born awoken, born staying connected to the spiritual realm. I mean, I've seen angels, I've seen fairies, I've seen all kind of mystical things throughout my lifetime. I mean, I'm 62 now, so it's like I said, 58 years of having these gifts and getting stronger and stronger as I got older and older. There was another time that I'll share with you. This is funny. This is comical, but I mean, not funny, but funny. So I was heading out of the house and all of a sudden I was told to stop. So I stopped. And then of course I listened and they told me my dad was talking to my mom about going to the heart doctor, something about his arteries, right? So I was like listening, but not listening. And then I was told to use my hands and tell him what is wrong, right? So I go, Dad, I got to put my hands on your neck. I'm going to tell you what's happening here. So he goes, what are you going to choke me or something? And I go, no, don't be silly. I'm not going to choke you. I'm just going to use my hands to tell you what to tell the doctor. So I put my hands on the neck and I feel and see, I can even smell the blood, that his right carotid artery, was fully blocked. And he's telling me, no, they said it's the left side has 70% or something. I said, Dad, they're wrong. When you go to the doctors, you tell them my daughter told me for you to check the right side. So he goes, how am I going to explain that? I go, however you want. And then I had to run. I had an appointment, so I had to go. So I leave and then I come home later and he had gone to the doctors and I go, well, what did he say? He goes, oh, he did the the ultrasound. He goes, you were right. And he wanted to know if you were a doctor. And I go, oh my gosh, what did you tell him? He goes, I didn't really know what to say. He goes, well, my daughter has like these weird gifts. I go, oh, you had to say the word weird. Thanks, Dad. And he's cracking up laughing. He goes, and it wound up being a doctor that I worked with in the hospital. So I was like, oh my gosh, how could you do this to me? So he told the doctor, um, you might even know my daughter, tells him my name, and tells him that I have this weird thing that I do with my hands, and that I was told I was a healer, but she can diagnose people, and she do all these medical things and diagnose people, medically, just with her hands. So the doctor said, oh, that's interesting. He goes, yeah, I do know, Nancy. So I was like, oh, Dad, I'm going to kill you. So he goes, no, the doctor wanted to know, how did you know? Because yes, you were right. So, he got them unclogged and got some stents put in. We used to call him the stent man because he had so many stents. But of course, when I went back to work, doctor came looking for me and he's like, so tell me, what is this gift? So I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about it here. So then I privately told him a little bit, And but yeah, that's so, things, sometimes you think the gifts are a curse and other times you think the gifts are, you're grateful. You're grateful for everything, right? But yeah, through the high school years and the younger years, it was hard because I could see things or know things that were going to happen. And, how do you tell people that when, you're a little nervous? Because my mom was nervous somebody would take me, or put me in a hospital for the crazy people. And that's another story because I think a lot of people back in the 50s, 60s, like that era, I think that they were misdiagnosed and they were put in these hospitals telling them they're crazy when they probably were really seeing spirits and they had nobody to help and guide them through it. So, it's not easy getting through, especially being an empath and you're, trying to learn as a child that you're feeling that person's feelings, these aren't yours. That was really hard trying to get through that in my, 4, 5, 6, those stages until I became a teenager. And then you kind of just have a knowing, like, no, this isn't me. This is coming from that person. Or if you touch somebody, it's like, I didn't want to even shake hands with people because I would get like, I almost felt like it was like, oh, I got this fly in here, like a zap, because all of a sudden I would just feel what they're feeling or see what they're going through. And then how do you tell them when you're here for them, without looking crazy? Because not a lot of people believed in that stuff. But anyway, I hope that I helped you understand the 8 Clairs and about the visionary, the seer. I hope that you enjoyed this video and hearing about what happened to me, a little bit of what happened to me within my childhood to the present moment. So if any of it resonates with you, please leave a comment. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and share with somebody you think that would enjoy this video. And that's it, guys. All right. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.